Welcome to A Scrap Life, a podcast solely focused on the hustlers, grinders, operators, and business owners who live and breathe the scrap metal industry every day. We are the original recyclers. No suits required, just guts and hard work. Here is your host, Brett Eckhart.
We're back, everybody. Another episode of A Scrap Life. And this one's not very often do I get the 2-for-1 special, so I'm kind of excited today. It's usually a one-on-one endeavor, but this one just couldn't be done with a one-on-one because it's the two guys, two cousins, as a matter of fact, that started Ruby Recycling. A great story, super interesting. I'm super excited to put this one on just because I think everybody that's in the scrap world knows individuals like this that have kind of went out and found their own path and started something pretty cool. And in this one, Ruby Recycling, I'm going to let Jeff and Jay tell the story, but of all the names to come up with on why would you name your company Ruby Recycling, like, let's hear it from the horse's mouth. Where did the name come from?
So as Brett mentioned, Jeff and I are first cousins, and our grandfather's name is Reuben Sonne. And as we started to put together a plan to eventually chase the dream of entrepreneurship and opening up our own yard, the name mattered, and it rolls off the tongue. And, our grandpa was a very important part of our life, taught us the value of family, and it stuck with us forever. So we wanted to name the company after him to honor him every day, and he was a man of honor and virtue, and it forces us to always put that at the top of our brains every day we work.
So there wasn't a question. It wasn't a question of what the name would be when we decided to do our
so it's
jump on.
Cousins. I was asking this earlier, but cousins, what's the relation between the two of you?
Jeff's dad and my mom are siblings, and that's why my middle name's Sonny. So I still have it. I still have the name in my name somewhere. That's the relationship.
So is your grandmother is she still alive?
So she passed away in May of 19, I want to say. She was 95 years old. Okay. And she lived a long life. She got to see all of her grandkids become parents.
That's awesome.
And she's no longer with us.
So what do your brothers, sisters think about you guys having the name Ruby Recycling? They got to think that's pretty cool, I would assume.
They love it. I think our parents, my dad and his mom, my dad always makes comments about, oh, Papa's smiling, Papa's upstairs smiling right now, but they love it. I think my dad was brought to tears when I told him that we were calling it Ruby Recycling.
Dude, I love it. Like I said, I was thinking about that earlier. I told you, I thought about the name and I was like, where does that come from? But then when you hear the story, you're like, oh yeah, I like it. Makes sense. Was your grandfather in the scrap business? Or was it just no? It's just you guys. So if he wasn't in the scrap business, then how do you two gentlemen find your way into this crazy industry?
Some days I consider it bad luck. Some days I consider it good luck. I got a phone call from a guy that I grew up with who was looking to expand his electronics recycling business at the time. His name's Nathan Zach, and he offered me an opportunity to help grow his electronic business. So he hired me in 2007. And then eventually I moved back home to Detroit to help open GLE Scrap Metal in Detroit. So that was my original experience. And then I got into the business with them in ferrous and non-ferrous. And I was with them until 2013. So that's how I got my start.
Yeah, mine started in December of 13. So Jay, after GLE, Jay had moved to a company called GLR. And I was in the collection business actually at the time. I was running the legal department of a collection agency, collecting money. And so GLR was a small company at the time. They had one peddler yard in a city called Roseville, Michigan. And Jay and the owner, who I also knew from my childhood, wanted to expand it, grow it, and they needed some young, like-minded people. And so they made me an offer to come on board as I started as a trader, just knowing nothing about scrap, no experience in scrap, I didn't know what non-ferrous from ferrous, anything. So I started as a trader in January of 14 at GLR, and started working my way up, and then eventually we decided to start buying cars, and that's when I got into the car side and recycling.
I feel like if you're in the collections business, then you're always making deals, right?
Yes,
So there is like
yeah.
I feel like there's something there, like, because on the scrap side, it's people, we talk about it all the time is, we even talk about on the expansion side. When I was at the Scrap Expo, I kind of included my discussion was like, you don't necessarily have to have a ton of capital. You just got to be good at structuring deals any kind of way with any type of person to get to where you're trying to get to, right? And I feel like that's collection.
There's nothing harder than getting somebody to answer your call and then give you their money to pay off an old bill that they don't want to pay. Trust me, there's nothing harder in this world than doing that.
And so Jeff wanted to give an opportunity to work for a company where you'd offer people money. He couldn't wait to get on board.
Yeah. They're like, oh, I get to give people money instead of trying to take it. Yeah, let's go. Let's do it.
I can see the advantage of that for sure. So in 2013 is kind of when you guys actually went to work together, right? And at GLR. And I was reading through my notes and I was going through and it was talking about, GLR when you guys started in 2013 to 2020 ish when you guys exited. Had a tremendous like growth curve, right? I mean, it went from one yard to when you guys exited was the
2 broker divisions.
Okay. And what drove that growth? I mean, I'm sure the market, I remember those years, going from 13 to 20, and there was that kind of a blip in the 14, 15 that there was and I say blip, like
15 was rough.
It was a tough one, which is actually what created the opportunity for us to buy out Schnitzer out of our business in that right around that time period. But what really drove that growth from 13 to 20 for GLR as a company and your guys' careers as a whole?
Yeah, I think upper management was, Jeff touched on it, like-minded people. We were young and
aggressive.
Yeah, there you go. Said at the same time, must be true. And
we were aggressive. We were battling against big boy. When we came in, we were battling against big boys like Ferris Processing and Fritz. And at the time, you had to be really aggressive to kind of break into that, right?
Okay.
Parts yards in Detroit, auto parts yards are everywhere. And there's some really big names like US Auto and Ryan's Auto Parts that are big names in Detroit that have been around forever. That kind of had it was like a good old boys club, right? That had a stranglehold on the cars. And the only way we could kind of break through it was to be super aggressive, which we were.
Yeah, we were aggressive. We also had, different business models. We had our growth, a couple of yards were just pedal yards. Some were mainly cars. Some were Ferris and non-Ferris mixed with cars or mixed with pedal. So when you have more than one business model, it also allows you to grow quick if you so choose to. And, we had, the ownership team was not afraid to spend some money on growth and believing in us. And so, it really starts with upper management having the stomach for it, and ownership team having the belief in the upper management to support that. So was
an active ownership? I mean, were people that were owners, were they involved in the day-to-day business just as heavily as the upper management?
No, the majority owners were not.
Okay.
So it was a lot of trust, and I learned a lot from them. And definitely grateful for my experience there.
So was there a willingness to like deploy capital? Like you said, I mean, there's a lot of trust there because obviously you don't go from say 1 yard to 7 and, really that type of expansion. Was there, and you say the owners weren't active. Was there a willingness to deploy excess amounts of capital to achieve growth plus just having a group of young fucking hustlers, for lack of a better term, to get it done?
I can tell you that, when I left GLE for an opportunity at GLR, the majority owner said to myself and a couple other guys there, if you guys can support me spending the money, I'll spend it. And I can tell you, we tested that theory time and time again. And he always came through. I'll give him some credit. The man always came through on it.
He did.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So at that age, I'm just, how old were you guys at that time? I'm just trying to put the, are you guys similar in age? Are you about the same age?
We're both 42. So
okay. Same age as me. Yep.
So I was about 32. I was about 32 years old when we started there, 31, 32. And then by the time we really started growing it in our mid 30s, really kind of getting aggressive.
And people around you, are you guys a similar age doing the same thing together?
The owner, like Jay touched on, the main owners were older, but the minority owner that was running it was the same age as us. We grew up with him. He was also uber aggressive. So the three of us were kind of like the driving force of the growth.
So people ask me all the time, like, why I'm able to do what I do, and I have the same concept. Right? I have a bunch of guys that are the same age as me, like within a year or two, and we're all very similar minded, and we just get up every day, we just fucking go at it, right? And it's like the funnest thing. And I think people that aren't in our, that don't do what we do with their friends or their cousins or whatever, like that they don't understand, like. You can actually have a good time, and there's, don't get me wrong, like there's some stressful, like there's some shit moments that kind of come up every day or once a month or a year or whatever, and you're like, oh, here we go, but it's like when you're at least in the trenches with all your friends, you don't feel like you're just kind of alone, and you're like, yeah, I'm like, whatever gets thrown at us, good or bad, there's something that you're gonna get out of it,
Mm-hmm.
I always say we're gonna end up roses on the other side, even if we have to swim through shit to get there. And,
absolutely, yeah.
This business, you swim through some shit. I mean, that's just what it is. But I take a lot of pride in the downtimes, and how you get through it. And
that's how we judge ourselves. You don't judge yourself on the good, like in the good markets and the good times when everything's easy. Like, you judge yourself on how well you do when times are tough, when markets are down, when you're grinding every single day to try and to just figure out a way to squeeze every inch of profit you can out of that month. That's how we always judged ourselves, and that's when we felt like we were at our best. That's what gave us an advantage over other people.
Did you feel, was there an underdog like feeling when you guys were battling?
100%. I'm going to tell you a quick little story. Okay.
Yeah.
So it was probably about 2014. So in 2014, GLR decided we wanted to get into the car game. And it was the owner of GLR, Michael, who's our age, Jay and myself, sitting at a table, and we brought in the higher ups from Ferris Processing. It was, one of their main traders, one of their operations guys, one of their vice president, the higher ups. And we said, we're going to start buying cars. We want you guys to buy our crushed cars. Let's make a deal. We're going to buy 100 a month. That's all we said. 100 a month. Not very many.
Yeah.
And they laughed at us. They literally laughed at us and said, how do you guys think you're going to just roll in and start buying cars in this market? In Detroit's the most competitive scrap market in the country.
Yeah.
It's a fact. We've been told, by other, so it's the most competitive scrap market in the country for scrap cars. And they said, how do you expect to just roll in? And we took it personal. And we still, to this day, Jay and I, even now that we're here in Ruby, we remember that moment when they laughed at us and they walked out, and we said, all right. And we ended up, by the time we left GLR, we were buying 80,000 cars a year.
Awesome.
And so there was absolutely the underdog chip on the shoulder. Every day we woke up with the chip on our shoulder, like, let's go to war. Let's go battle these big boys who think that they're better than us just because their business cars is Ferris. But the thing is that what's different is those guys who have that business car didn't build it. They don't own it. They don't need it, right? They just, they wake up, they go to work, they make a few phone calls, they hang up at 5 o'clock, they check out, they go home. We needed it. Like, it was like, we had to. And so there was no they couldn't compete with us, even though they were bigger and we were small.
It's the old saying goes, and I've always said this to be true, is it's hard to be hungry when you're fed, right? And sometimes the bigger they get, then they'll feel fed. And when you're fed, like, you're not hungry like you are when you're, like when we started here and I started recruiting guys my age, and like, we were just hungry, right? And just like we are today, like, we're hungry to do more, we're hungry to build. But it's just because we came from a 1-2 yard system, right? Where we're like competing against, our main competitors got 44 yards, like, and here we are, like, all right, let's go, let's battle. And dude, we loved it, man. And I think to this day, like, that's what gets us up every day. So I knew, like, just by talking to you guys, I was like, I bet there's going to be some crossover here, that underdog, like, mentality. When you're just so hungry, you're willing to work the hours, you're willing to do whatever it takes. And I think that's the game. And I think I could see that in you. So obviously you guys work together now. Give me the story from inception to today, like when you started, when you guys left, kind of what's that the transition look like? You guys are go from 1 yard to 8, 7 yards, and you're battling through it, to what makes you guys kind of like say, okay, we're done, we're gonna go do our own thing?
I can't speak for Jeff, but I can speak for me. August of 2020 was a big month and year for me. It was the 10th anniversary of my dad's passing, and also would have been his 70th birthday. And my dad started his own business from scratch and built it with my mom. And there's certain things he told me throughout my life that I just kept hearing on repeat, and I just kept hearing on repeat. And one of them was, he said, if you're gonna work like you own the place and act like you own the place and stress like you own the place, might as well own the place.
Yeah.
And I remember I asked him one time as well in high school. I still remember I asked him, what made him want to start his own company? And without thinking, he said, every boss I ever had, I always thought I was better than, and I wasn't afraid to test the theory. Not saying that's how I feel about the bosses I've had, but at some point, I was 39 at the time, in August 2020. And I was just like, you know what? If I don't jump and chase the dream now, I might never do it.
Yeah.
So it was really that simple, it wasn't.
Not everybody has that awareness,
yeah,
component, right? Where it's like, my window of time where I'm going to have a level of comfort to do this, right, is right now. And so, good that you were able to kind of step back.
I was the same age. I was 39. I had 2 kids and a mortgage. Now I have 3 kids, but I had 2 little kids at the time. And we just, there comes a time where you just feel like there's more, right? Like you can do more, you can handle more, like you're doing everything, but you're tired of seeing everything work out for everybody else based on your hard work. Let's go do it for ourselves. And so, it was just time. It was time to make the leap and bet on ourselves. And, similar to Jay, my dad, he was a dentist, but he owned his own practice when he was 31 years old, similar age to I was, and he had kids. He made the leap to leave the dental office he was at and go start his own practice and build it from scratch. And he told me, you can never put a price on independence. You can never put a price on happiness. And I knew that I wasn't going to be happy just working at this company. I was making a good living, but working at this company for the next 20, 30 years. Like, the only way to truly go to do something is to go do it for yourself. And so
you have to have skin in the game, right? In 100%. One fashion or another. And that's something that I push for here is, we have a kind of a core group of individuals that have helped us build this, right? And I basically said, like, you guys now officially you have skin in the game, right? It's now as much as part of your business as it is mine. And so when we were able to do that, then I'm like, okay, like now that everybody's in it to win it. But I think that if you're not in a position in a company that's not willing to give you skin in the game, then you have to go create and put skin in the game somewhere, right? And I think that's the, like, not everybody's built like that though, right? And I understand that, but the people that are, like, they're just not going to be happy until they actually, either have it. Yeah, exactly. So
like we got tired, I shouldn't say we, I got tired of making other people really wealthy off my hard work. It's time for us to go do something for ourselves and be sink or swim, pass or fail, whatever it might be. At least we know that we gave it our shot and then it was our time.
Yeah, and the other two say is real quick, just to wrap up that answer. I knew me well enough to know if I never gave it a shot later in my life, I would have thought of myself as a fraud, to be honest with you. Like Jeff said, pass or fail. If we fail, I'll know, and that works. And I don't want to also touch on our wives, right? They supported us 100%. I came home and I told my wife, I said, listen, I'm leaving and I don't have a plan. And I will figure it out, I promise. And she honestly said, good, and I know. And that was it. There was no debate. There's no pushback. I was like, I love your parents, so we ain't moving in with them. So I'm going to figure it out.
My conversation with my wife went a little different. Not quite that.
You had kids.
Not quite as cut and dry as that one, but at the same thing, she knew. She knew I wasn't going to be happy there. And she knew that one way or another, we would figure it out. And she believed in us and she believed in me, and she knew that I had the drive to get it done.
And I think for the people out there listening, Jeff and I have something in common. Both of our wives are special education teachers, which I think goes to their willingness and their patience is important. Like that you develop a ton of patience with that profession. So I always feel like my wife looked at me as a good project. So
Same,
I would assume
same.
yours was similar.
Still does. She still, yeah, she
Yes,
still
and
does.
I know that I am too. But I was talking to Matt from Millbridge. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him at all, but he has a very similar story in the fact that like he had a couple hundred thousand in his 401k, and that's all he had, him and his wife, and he's like, if I don't go now, like I gotta make the leap, right? And I think as guys, we take on a lot of bravado and we say, but we have a lot of support behind us that gives us that ability to take the leap. And we feel like, all right, well, someone to stand behind us and say, okay, go figure it out. But just the sooner, the fucking better,
Right.
So speaking of the sooner, the better, you guys sat out a year with a non-compete, right? And then we were just saying that from that non-compete year, and it took you, what was it, another just a little over 8 months to actually get your first yard,
in another 14 months to open.
Yeah. So
yeah, we closed on the property in August of 22, the property that we're at now, and we left in December of 2020. So it took us until August of 22 to find the property, and then we opened in February of 23. So then it took us another number of months to get the property up to specs for how we needed it.
So was it an existing scrapyard, an existing auto salvage, an existing commercial piece? Like what was the layout before you guys made the purchase?
It was an existing auto parts company. They've been open since 1937. Family just didn't have anyone to pass it to, and they were looking to get out.
Okay. So you guys then tried to you probably had to reconfigure it if it was just an auto kind of part. You guys kind of probably
change things around. There was a lot of TLC the yard needed. Jay, we always say they were open since 1937. It looked like they stopped carrying in 1957.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of TLC that we had to do to get that yard up and ready, and we had to work with the city to get it up and running. And so it took every day from the moment we closed to the moment we opened to get the yard where we needed it to be.
Gotcha. So from that point on, so you guys get the yard bought, you figure out your location, which is, for anybody that wants to know, like I said, it's, you say 12 miles or 10 miles outside of Detroit proper, right?
Southwest of Detroit. Okay. Yeah. Downriver at Lincoln Park.
So you guys get it bought, you get it closed. I got a picture, I think Jay sent I think it's of his daughter or your daughter, somebody's daughter out there, and you could tell like you guys are getting everything kind of tidied up and getting it ready, which is awesome. It's a true family affair. And so it took you, how long did it take you to actually get it open from the date you closed on it?
We closed in August 12th. It was actually my dad's birthday, which is crazy when you think about that. And then we finally opened on Thursday, February 8th or 9th, whatever that was, in 2023.
Okay. Nice. And did you guys put a truck scale in, or how'd you guys? Yeah.
We put a truck scale. We had to put up we had to do everything. Put in a new fence. We bought a non-ferrous baler, bought a truck scale. We bought an RB 6000 before we even had the property. We were just so geared up. Like we had an RB 6000. We had a baler in Indiana, just waiting for us to find a property to be delivered. We were just buying up equipment, buying up everything so that we were ready to rock by the time we found the property.
Nice. And so you guys get it open, and obviously you guys, there's never two CEOs. There's never, like, what is the division of duties between the two of you? Because I'm curious how you, and I'm only speaking from my own experiences. I feel like the reason we've had success is we have very clear lanes, right? Like you do this and you do this, and you're responsible for this, and you stay in your lane, and I'll stay in mine. And if I need help, I'll ask, right? Type of deal. But at the end of the day, we're all going down the same highway, trying to get to the same spot, but everybody has a very clear lane where they need to be.
Jeff and I have had years of practice at this, because I was the COO and vice president of GLR, and Jeff was the other vice president. So we had years of practice of staying in our own pool. So we always say, we don't dip our toes in each other's pool.
Yeah.
And unless it's asked, or unless, we're free to give each other our 2 cents, and we do it. But it's always, respectfully and, stuff like that. So, it's pretty simple. It's the same thing. I buy everything that's not a car. I sell everything that's not a cat. Jeff buys the cars. Jeff sells the cats. We have our division of what we do in the company. Jeff runs the office staff that works on the paperwork. I work with the office staff that does the AP and the AR, and it's.
And the best part, so we divided up that way, but what made it really easy for us when we opened was finding our operations manager who works with both of us, right? But we thought it was going to take us 18 months to find the right person. We found him before we even opened, which made the transition in a lot smoother for us.
Okay, nice.
I'll tell you a quick crazy story about him because I think it's wild.
Let's do it.
So he lived in the middle of the state, and he moved to the Detroit area when we gave him the opportunity. And he has 3 kids, 2 in high school, 1 I think in kindergarten or first grade. So when they moved to the Detroit area, they had to get new doctors. And when his youngest child, who's a daughter, went to the doctor found a heart defect that had otherwise gone unnoticed. And if it hadn't been found, she would have passed away within a few years. And she had to have open heart surgery. And I remember when he came to us and he's like, guys, by you guys opening Ruby Recycling, you saved my daughter's life. And I literally looked at Jeff that day. I was like, if we fail, we succeeded. Just by chance, right? We didn't plan it. But I'm getting chills. I get chills every time I tell the story. And it's absolutely wild that 2 guys chasing a dream helped save a kid's life unintentionally, obviously, but it still happened. And he's Jeff, to get back to Jeff's point, he is perfect for us. And he runs the yard, he runs the equipment. The guys and the team respect him. And if you tell him or ask him to do something, he does it. I mean, our team separates us immensely from everybody else, and he leads that team.
And I think that's how you create you create success, is by you putting the right people in the right spots. And obviously you guys dividing up your duties accordingly, but then also finding people, as we were discussing earlier, the greatest challenge is always going to be as you grow. Because the way I know you two, not super well, but having had a couple conversations now, you guys are probably built very similar to me. Like I put a quote up the other day. It was like, don't complain about your plate being full because you're the one that wanted to eat. Like we all want to eat, so we're like, fill that motherfucker up. Like I'm trying to, and so that being said, then you're going to grow. Like it's a natural way. You're going to go through some aches and pains, but you're going to grow. And then, but your ability to recruit and maintain and bring new people into the fold that see stuff the way you do and have a loyalty built into you for whatever reason, right? I mean, whether it's because you helped them save their daughter's life or because, they liked you from your previous interactions or whatever that is, like that's where the real winners win. Is I think they bring good people up and they bring people with, and they build accordingly.
Yeah. And we've built a culture where there's no boss jumping either. And I think that's important to touch on. We told our yard manager, Scott, when we hired him that, unless someone's doing something completely unsafe, we're going to tell them to stop. Other than that, we're just going to say, hi, how you doing? He's the general of the Army, right? Jeff and I go out there and try to prove, by beating our chest that we're going to tell you to do something he didn't. We're not, we will never do that. And even our office manager, we're like, listen, if an employee comes to us and they say, I have an issue with Scott or I have an issue with our office manager, we're going to say, listen, it sounds like you have an issue with them. If we need to jump in and fix it, we will. But you better exhaust every option, because I've seen it happen up front and close where you cut out your manager's legs from underneath them by feeling the need to prove that you're the boss. And it's just so ass backwards and detrimental that we've never done it. We'll never do it, whether to ourselves or anybody else.
And some people need that coaching. Like not everybody understands it or has been in that situation. We had this meeting, I had this conversation just a couple of days ago or 2 days ago in our Boise production meeting. Was like trying to help them understand the importance of working through other people, right? So that they can communicate with their team and that they bring the problems then to them and not to you. Because as soon as you create a path around, then you're basically eliminating, then there's really no reason for you to have that person in that position, right? So you have to work through them and make people work back through them, so that
we've seen too many times where employees have the owner's ear, where they can go right up to the owner's door anytime they want And it, like to Jay's point, it totally cuts your legs out. It minimizes what you're able to do. We just don't have that. We don't do that here. Literally, I have never told anyone in the yard to do anything different than what Scott tells them to do. If I have an opinion, I'll tell Scott, and Scott and I will talk, or Jay and Scott will talk, or the three of us will talk, and then Scott will go give that message to the yard. But too many times I've seen that happen where it
happens.
Creates confusion. It creates animosity. It just doesn't. There's no good that comes from it.
So my next thing is moving on to how your guys' yard is set up. So you guys have an interesting setup. You guys were talking about this in the fact that you guys don't do retail business, right? I mean, everything you guys do is business to business transaction for the most part. Like I said, I think you said other than on the car side, right? So explain to me the purpose, the reasoning, your guys' thought process, because that's unique in our industry. I think there's a very small percentage of recycling facilities, unless you're like a mill or whatever, like they don't do business with retail. So kind of explain to me that concept and why you guys went that route.
Yeah, I mean, we initially wanted a yard that was 8 to 10 acres, right, to be able to do everything. But we found a yard that was just under 5 acres. So, when you're faced with the reality of having just under 5 acres, you have to decide what your core business is, because trying to do everything in less than 5 acres was only going to create confusion. So we decided what's going to make us different. And part of what makes us different, since we're not open to the public, is the trucks, the tow truck drivers, they get in and out so much faster, and they're able to turn their purchases over faster. So maybe if they go to another yard, they can only do 6 cars a day, but us, they can do 8. And that was really it. It was kind of that simple. We told every truck driver, you're going to have truck drivers that are going to say, I want to go to Ruby's. I don't want to go to X. I want to go there because I'm in and out. I'm not behind any, 12 trucks or whatever of peddlers, which is, like I said earlier, it's fine if that's your business model. It just isn't ours. And it's been working. I mean, it's really been working. And there's just less moving parts. It's cliche, but less is more. And
100%.
We did it. Are working.
It just we ran we're driven by everything by numbers, right? We ran numbers. Was it worth it to have X amount more people coming in, dumping, just clogging up lanes, keep convoluting everything? It wasn't worth it for us in this yard. Not to say we won't have a peddler yard in the future, but for this yard here, it didn't make sense.
Well, I think every yard is built a little bit different, right? I mean, especially you go across the country, but even in every different geography, you go to some people's yards and they got 50 acres, right? And then our biggest yard, I think, goes maybe 12, something like that. And then we have a yard, like, say, down the road that's 2.5, right? So it's a very compressed, but we have a rail spur on that one. So it's like every yard is set up, built functionally different. So if we have big iron, big shit, we go, okay, take it down the road. We're going to go to the 12-acre yard because we can lay it down, we can cut it, we can, we've got space. And then on the small one, it's like it's throughput. Like, we got a spur, like we got trucks, let's get it in, let's get it processed, let's get it out as soon as we can, because it's just a much tighter footprint. You can't sit on the material there. So I think, and you guys not knowing what you were going to end up with, you guys kind of had to pick a lane. And it's important in this industry to figure out a way to differentiate yourself, especially in a competitive market. And I had to feel like that had to weigh into your decision.
We knew walking in that cars were going to be a big, the big driving force of this yard, right? And we're going to buy and sell non-ferrous, and it's a major part of this business. But the most space we were going to need was going to be for the auto division. And we knew there was going to be X amount of cars coming in here every day. And you just, when you space out where the cars are going to be in the yard, it didn't leave that much, if we're going to do that, and we're going to do industrial, and we're going to bring in demo job, it just didn't leave any space for 75 peddlers to come in, every day. It didn't make sense. So for our business model, we mapped it out, and that's what we needed.
And we mapped the yard out hundreds of times, right? Mm-hmm. And it was funny, the day before we laid the concrete, Jeff and I were like, fuck, we did this wrong. And we it was kind of like when you're pregnant and you have a name picked for 8.5 months, and all of a sudden your wife decides she hates the name, so you have to shit. That was us with our yard. And we fucking hit it right. Like the way we did it is perfect, but the way we're going to do it, like the day before we laid the concrete. Oh,
yeah. But what's funny is like we
so how did you change it? Like, how did it, so you guys, the day before you did you?
We put in big tops, right? We put in big tops to process our cars under. It's like, the big hoop houses on concrete pads with concrete walls. We had them in one spot, approved by the city on drawings. And then literally he came to pour the pads and we're like, it's not going to make sense. He's like, well, the concrete's here. We're like, all right, just put it over there and we'll talk to the city about it after,
Yeah.
Better to ask for forgiveness than permission, right? So we're like, just pour it over there. And we poured it just to space things out a bit, made way more sense. And then, then I went to the city and I do the groveling for the city. And I went to the city and started groveling. Hey, we got to redo the plans and it all worked out. But yeah, literally he was there to pour the concrete. And we're like, this is not going to work.
That's awesome. We divide and conquer. Jeff deals with all the city paperwork because I would lose every single document you could ever need in life. And Jeff knows where everything is at all times. So we're that's another thing we divvy up.
Another lane you stay in.
Yes. For each other's yin and yang. I have the sunny gene of can be a little temperament, and Jeff doesn't. And he's always calm.
So so there's we run. We always say, like, when we talk to our employees, like, I'm here, right? I just stay very even. And Jay goes like this, and we end up at the same place. But so I always, when it's time to deal with the city, when it's time to deal with people that you can't like push around to get what you want, like when Jay gets hot, he'll call the trucking agent. I want this, I want that. You got to deal with people that you just got to like kind of stay even with. You send me in when it's time to get hot. Jay goes in, and we divide and conquer.
Go collect, Jay. So Jay could have been in the collection business.
I always said if I was a hockey player, I would have been like Dino Cicerelli, like the little guy in front of the net, just getting pummeled, but loves it.
Missing teeth and everything. So now that you guys have kids and you guys have your own gig, like, do you see someday like having your kids in the business? Is there a vision? Like, because people ask me that question all the time, and I'm like, probably not.
To be honest, to be frank, no. We always say that if our kids work at Ruby, then it's because we miscalculated. We have a vision to be retired and be out of this business at a certain time. And our kids are young enough to where by the time that happens, they won't be old enough to be here. But
gotcha.
Not to say that plans don't change, but today that's where the plans lie.
I like it. So how many more yards are you going to have between now and then? What's the yard count?
Muted, Jay. There you go.
My kid just got home, so I apologize if they do that. The real answer is we don't know, and we want opportunity to dictate our growth. And she's gonna be 8 years old tomorrow, by the way.
Nice.
So we want opportunity to dictate our growth. Now, do I think we're gonna have 1 yard forever? No, I think we're gonna grow, but we don't have a map. We really don't.
Okay.
But we're big into growing efficiently, right? And my big thing, Jay and I always say when we're talking about growing, the first question when we're brought an opportunity for a new yard or a new opportunity is, who's going to run it? And we want to have that answer, right? Too many times we've grown at our previous position, at our previous place. We grew just because we wanted to grow, because we knew it would add money to the bottom line. But in many times it just adds more stress, more headaches on the people in the higher up, because you don't have the right people in place. You don't have the right people on the bench to go move to that spot. And it creates more problems than solutions. So if we have the right person that we know is ready to step up and take the leap to run a yard, let's go get the next yard, and it makes a much more even, seamless transition.
Gotcha.
And so that in our minds, that's growing efficiently. When we don't let the fact that we're making money dictate that we want to grow. We won't let the fact that we have the right people in place to dictate.
Profits don't mean efficiency.
Yeah, opportunistic. You just got to be. I tell people all the time, you just got to be opportunistic when things come along, right? You have to kind of see what's out there, see what's available. I mean, you might think that the yard, 5 minutes to the east is the right one, but then the guy 10 minutes to the west calls and he's ready to get out, and you're like, oh, okay, well, that's it's our time to jump. So it's hard to plan for that, but knowing that you guys are still, have full intent on growing, I guess that's probably the biggest like this isn't like a, hey, let's build it. This is where we want to retire. We're good. We're going to build this thing up and
some bandwidth in us.
Yeah,
we have too much bandwidth. Like we said, we came from a spot where we were running 7 to 9 yards, and we have big visions of growing and growing rather quickly. But when we're ready, we're gonna let that dictate when we're ready to grow, when the people in place are ready.
I like it. Well, I think that's it. That's it for me, guys. I'm super excited. One of these days I'm going to work my way out there to Detroit. I've got a couple of people I want to go see. You guys being on that hit list, but I appreciate you guys sitting down, taking the time. Is there anything you guys want to leave with anybody that's listening to this show? Kind of any words of wisdom for the guys out there that are in a similar position you guys were that made the leap, or just anything you want to leave for anybody in the industry that's listening?
You want to go, Jeff, or no?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if it's words of wisdom. I don't know how much I have of that, but I would say that I mentioned it earlier. I knew at the end of my career, if I didn't take the leap, I would have been disappointed looking in the mirror. And the most important thing I think in life is just making the decision that your future self wants you to make. And I would encourage everybody to watch the YouTube video "Jump" by Steve Harvey. It's 6 minutes that'll change your life. It changed mine. It's one of the things I watched before I made the decision to jump. And don't be scared. That's it. That's all I got. Is don't live scared. It's cliche.
The words that my dad gave me: you cannot put a price on independence and happiness. And we were ready to make the leap and bet on ourselves, and we knew that one way or another it would work out. I didn't have the fear of jumping, but you just got to bet on yourself and take the leap and know that your hard work and your grinding it will come out on the other end.
Yeah, to that point, find a spot that you enjoy what you're doing and who you're doing it with, right? And I think that you guys have found that. And I think that's one of the things that I commend you, that I love. I get to show up here. I get to work with some of my best friends in life, and we get to grind it out and have our good days together, our bad days together. But if you can find that, you're super fucking lucky. And I don't care what anybody says, whether in the scrap business or a school teacher or whatever you're doing. Like if you have that in your life, like you're doing something right. You should be pretty grateful, especially this time of year, as we edge towards Thanksgiving.
We've built a career where bad days here are better than good days anywhere else. And speaking of Thanksgiving, I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for Jeff. I wouldn't be where I'm at if it wasn't for him. He's my brother, and we support each other to the end of time. And that really speaks volumes. You really need to surround yourself with people that genuinely want what's best for you. And that's the other thing I would say, I guess.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I ditto what Jay said, of course. And then also, we always say we walk into the stresses, like you say, there's going to be tough times. There's stresses here, but the beautiful thing is that it's our stress. Right. Yeah. It's the stress of our business. It's not the stress of somebody else above me putting it on me. It's the stress of ourselves and on ours. And, that makes it way more enjoyable.
Like I said, don't complain about a full plate when you're the one that was so hungry to begin with. Right. All right. Have a great one. I appreciate you guys taking the time. And until next time, here we go.